think of slavery, our minds drift to the Atlantic. But what if I told you another ocean carried millions of Africans into bondage, an ocean whose story remains buried in silence? This is the Indian Ocean slave trade, a history of broken families, erased cultures, and injustices that still echo today. The Indian Ocean, today a symbol of connection and commerce, but for centuries, its waters carried not only spices and silk, but millions of enslaved Africans. Here we uncover the hidden history of the Indian Ocean slave trade, revealing the social injustices committed against Africans: forced displacement, family separation, brutal labor, cultural erasure, and racial hierarchies. Their stories remain overshadowed by the Atlantic slave trade, yet the injustices they endured shaped societies across Africa, Arabia, and Asia. From the 9th century, and intensifying between the 16th and 19th centuries, Africans were captured from the Swahili coast, the Horn of Africa, and inland regions. They were forced onto dhows, sailing across the Indian Ocean to Arabia, Persia, and India. This trade was driven by demand for labor in plantations, pearl diving, domestic servitude, and military service. From the shores of Mozambique to the forests of the interior, Africans were seized, by force, by deception, by desperation. They were marched to coastal ports, sold in markets like Zanzibar and Kilwa, and loaded onto dhows bound for Arabia, Persia, and India. These were not voyages of trade. They were voyages of trauma, carried by wind and silence across the Indian Ocean. Here the greatest social injustices to humanity occurred against Africans. Families were torn apart. Children sold separately from parents. Communities fractured. Generations grew up disconnected from their ancestral roots, leaving scars that echo to this day. Enslaved Africans endured brutal labor, pearl diving in dangerous waters, endless toil in plantations, servitude in foreign households. Their sweat enriched foreign rulers, while their homelands were left weakened. They were treated as commodities, stripped of dignity, bought and sold like goods. Racial hierarchies branded them inferior, and women suffered sexual exploitation, forced into concubinage or violence. There was massive loss of culture as languages, traditions, and spiritual practices were suppressed. Entire generations grew up disconnected from their heritage, erasing cultural identity across oceans. Yet even in exile, the African spirit endured. Africans resisted. They rebelled, escaped, and preserved fragments of culture. Communities of freed slaves, like the Siddhis in India and Afro-Arabs in Oman, kept traditions alive.
Were brought as slaves. The Siddhis say they were elite slaves, serving the ruling class only. They appealed to India's Nawabs or Muslim rulers and the Mughals, a Muslim imperial power in the early 16th century, because of their loyalty and military skills. The United Nations recently launched an exhibit to raise awareness of the Siddhis' rise to positions of power through their military status. They created princely Siddhi states and served as kings themselves, a fact little known around the world.
Look at what they've accomplished for themselves and for Indian society. They rose to be noblemen, they rose to be commanders, soldiers, admirals.
The Siddhi today are the descendants of the 1800s people, as well as some Africans who arrived actually later.
The Siddhis of India kept their music, their dance, their pride.
Though far removed from their ancestors' homeland, the Siddhis have cherished their culture.
Afro-Arabs in Oman passed down stories and rhythms that defied erasure. These communities are living archives, proof that resilience can survive even the deepest injustice. Today, the descendants of the Indian Ocean slave trade live in the shadows of history. marginalized, misrepresented, and often forgotten. But their presence challenges us to remember, to confront the systems that erased them, and to restore the dignity that was stolen across centuries. The Indian Ocean carried not only trade, but tears. To remember is to honor those who endured. To confront injustice is to ensure it never sails again.